Hi, and welcome. You're listening to the X22 Report. My name is Dave, and this is episode 1258B, and today's date is April 19th, 2017, and the title of the episode is The Deep State is Getting Desperate. They are preparing their next move. Now, before I get started here, I just want to make an announcement. I placed an interview with Jason Burek on the X22 Report Spotlight YouTube channel. So if you just go over to YouTube and you type in X22 Report Spotlight, it should bring you right to the video. Or you can come over to the X22report.com site, scroll down a little bit, look over to your right-hand side. You can play the video right there. Or you can go to newssentinel.com. Same thing, scroll down a little bit, look over to your right-hand side, and you can play the video right on the site. Let's get into the economic collapse, political and geopolitical news. Now, Trump is out there and he is pushing once again the repeal of Obamacare. Now, we need to remember that when they pushed for the repeal of Obamacare, they were using a health care plan that was written by Boehner, which was really written by the insurance companies, passed on to Paul Ryan, which is then pushed on to Trump, and Trump said, okay, this looks pretty good, let's use this. Now, did he really think this was going to pass? Well, he was out there saying it's a great bill, but when we looked at it, it was just a reworking of what we already had, and we need something that is completely different. Now, I think they should just repeal Obamacare as of right now. We know the economy is collapsing. We know that things are falling apart. We know that things are going to be reset, and at this point, is it really that big of a difference at this point? Just repeal it, get rid of it, and make sure the people aren't penalized right now. Trump right now is calling on Americans to push their congressman to repeal and replace Obamacare. And this was announced in a speech at a factory in Wisconsin. So he's renewed his efforts to finish healthcare reform despite calling on lawmakers to move on to tax reform in the wake of leadership pulling the bill due to lack of votes in March. Now, he understands that he's not going to be able to get the tax reform unless he has the repeal of Obamacare. It's not going to happen. And what he needs to understand is that if you're going to repeal Obamacare and replace it, you're going to have to come up with something incredible that works for the people, not for the insurance companies, not for the government, but for the people. And it has to be affordable. It has to give the people what they want. And if they can't do that, then just repeal Obamacare. Because right now, with the penalties and the high premiums, it is just not working. And he needs to understand this. And yes, I understand that he's making a call out to the American public, but he needs to understand that he needs to do his job to support the people in something that is incredible. And this is a very difficult task to do because you need to cover many individuals. And that's why it is very difficult. And healthcare in other countries where people think it's free, well, you have to remember they're paying high taxes, and we have to understand that nothing is ever for free. There's always a cost someplace. Either they get it through the back end, the front end, it doesn't make a difference. There's always a cost. So we need to see something a lot better for the people. And if it's really good, then it should be replaced. The government insurance should be replaced with this new insurance plan. That's how we, the people, will know that it is good to go. If they can't do that, we don't want it. Now, it looks like James Comey, the man who refused to bring charges against Hillary Clinton, despite a mountain of concrete evidence that she and several members of her staff knowingly violated several federal laws, apparently used the largely discredited Trump dossier to help secure the FISA warrant to secretly monitor Trump's former campaign aide, Carter Page. And this is according to CNN. Very interesting. So they just admitted there was a FISA warrant and they were spying on Trump. Now, think about what is happening here. They think that Trump is on their side. They think that he's part of the deep state. So they're coming out with all this information. And actually, they're proving him to be absolutely right. Now, the FISA warrant was for Carter Page, and it turns out that Carter Page was spied on illegally, and he's saying that he looks forward to the discovery process and testimony that will come from the lawsuit he plans to file in short order. He said, I look forward to the Privacy Act of 1974 lawsuit that I plan to file in response to the civil rights violations by Obama administration appointees last year. The discovery process will be of great value to the United States as our nation hears testimony from them under oath and we receive disclosure of the documents which show what exactly was done in 2016. So the walls are closing in around the Obama administration. And this is when we should become very, very nervous, because the deep state does not like to be called out on anything. They don't like what is happening. And we could see right now that they're going to make a move, most likely, because what we're seeing right now is that things are being turned around. The corporate media doesn't know what's real, what's fake, if they're being fed real information or fake information. Actually, the administration has them spiraling out of control. And we're going to talk about that a little bit later in this report. But Trump is out there telling Paul Ryan right now to get NATO to pay their bills. And he wants him out there. He wants Paul Ryan to tell the nations, you need to pay your bills. Now, there was a report that the United States scrambled F-22 fighter jets to intercept a Russian strategic bomber near Alaska. The corporate media is making a very big deal about this. And we see that Russia's Tu-95MS Bear, it's a strategic bomber. It was on patrol over the neutral waters near Alaska. And the aircraft covered about 5,000 kilometers at the speed of about 850 kilometers per hour and at the height of about 10,000 meters. The flight lasted more than 7 hours. The Tu-95MS bomber were accompanied by 27 minutes of F-22 fighter jets. Now, the long-range bomber regularly carries out patrol missions just like the United States bombers. They also carry out missions. Russia's bomber was in neutral waters, and this is normal practice where each country will send their jets up to escort whatever plane or ship there is across wherever they're going. And we can see right now that the bomber was in strict compliance with international regulations with respect to national borders, and there really wasn't any type of problem. But of course, they're making it into a very big deal. They want everyone to say, oh, look what Russia's doing. They're flying a bomber. Do you know how many missions the United States flies along Russia's borders through the Baltic states, throughout Europe, especially also in the South China Sea with China? But the corporate media, they really don't mention this because they know it's a non-story. This would make good headlines. It's a story, gets people all riled up. Oh my God, Russia's coming to get us. And this is what they're pushing. Because what do they want in the end? They're part of the deep state. They're part of the neocons. They're part of the central bank system. They want war. Now, it looks like the U.S. Air Force, they're planning to deploy more F-35 Lightning II stealth multi-role fighters in Europe in the coming days. And this is according to Captain Mark Graff. And currently, 6 F-35As are deployed to Europe as part of a planned training deployment to train alongside U.S. and NATO aircraft stationed in Europe. And a few more are scheduled to arrive in Europe. And we know in the past, this was a huge buildup to bring military assets, bring military troops into this region, Eastern Europe, the Baltic states, down to the South China Sea, the Middle East, Africa, because all along, the deep state, the neocons, the central bankers, they have been planning for war, and they want war to cover up this economic collapse. The problem is, we would have been already in war if Hillary Clinton was elected. We know that because we could see this is where we were headed. Trump was elected, and the corporate media, the deep state, the central bank, all came out and said, holy crap, how did he get elected? And they started their campaign to try to get rid of him. And it looks like they were having a very difficult time. They were trying to push, and he was pushing from the other side, and there was a battle going on. And this is when Trump and the others who want a complete change decided to change tactics. Now, a lot of people can't see this. Now, many people say that he's part of the deep state. He's with the dark side. Now, if we do go to war, well, we know right there and then, well, guess what? He is part of the deep state. He's with the dark side, and we're at war. At that point, is it really going to matter at this point? No, because we're going to see missiles flying above us, and it's going to be a complete disaster. But what's very interesting is the tactics that he's using right now. And these are the certain indicators that we're looking at right now. Remember yesterday when we talked about the aircraft carriers, where when we checked on them, they weren't really doing what the corporate media was telling us they were doing. Now, the corporate media has this incredible way of just believing the government. They get the information. We've seen this in the past with Obama and all the other presidents, where they get the information from the government and they just print it. They just put it out there and they say this is what's happening, like it's fact. Trump realized this. And if you notice, the corporate media is going along with all the propaganda, where the USS Carl Vinson is on its way, the Ronald Reagan is on its way, the USS Nimitz is on its way, and we're going into North Korea. And again, as we see, the propaganda from the corporate media is out there. Bloomberg put out an article that Korea was launching missiles into China. I mean, that is very, very dangerous. But what happened was the corporate media, maybe they were listening to alternative media, where they heard that, wait a minute, the USS Carl Vinson, or maybe they did some investigation, which is pretty unlikely. They got information that the USS Carl Vinson really wasn't en route to North Korea, like the White House said or the Pentagon said, wherever they got their information. And the Pentagon, the White House, had to come out and explain away why this wasn't really happening. And at this point, we can see that they are in the process of feeding them propaganda to get them to do what they want. Because as we checked, we can see none of these ships are doing what they say. But the corporate media is out there saying that this is what's happening. So we can see there's a huge game going on right now. And Russia, China, and the U.S., those in the Trump administration, those individuals, they are all working together. And they're creating this entire covert operation to trap the deep state and to get rid of them once and for all. Now, it's hard to believe, it's very difficult to understand, but we can see right now how he is playing them. Right now, China is saying that there's a high probability that something might happen between April 25th and May 9th. Now, China says that there's a pattern, and it suggests provocation as early as 2 weeks before the South Korean presidential election on May 9th. That this 2-week window overlaps with North Korea's Military Foundation Day on April 25th. This is why they're picking this time frame, that something might occur. And it looks like they might be setting up the deep state for this. Because as we know, if there is a missile that is fired and it shoots down a missile that North Korea can get in the air, if they can even get one in the air, well, this is going to really start something. Now, is that going to be enough to start World War III? No. What I think is going to happen is we're at this point in time where the deep state is very desperate. Russia, China, the administration here in the United States, they are planning to set up the corporate media, planning to set up the deep state, and they want to trap them. They want to weed them out and to trap them in what is going on here. And this is why he's playing the game right now to do this. And we can see at this point, they're feeding the corporate media a lot of this propaganda, and the corporate media is building up war, building up all these type of talks and all these different scenarios that are going to happen. Just like they said 150,000 troops were going into Syria. China was mounting 150,000 troops on its borders. They're just continually feeding them this information. And almost all of it is complete propaganda. But the corporate media is going along with it. Now, U.S. was surveilling North Korea's nuclear test sites, from which U.S. officials have speculated that a nuclear weapons test could be imminent. And they've revealed a series of intramural volleyball games underway among troops stationed on the sites. And they were completely surprised to see that they have volleyball tournaments going on where they're going to have a test, which makes no sense whatsoever. So something is going on here. Are there really tests going on in North Korea? Most likely not. I think North Korea is playing it up. I think there's a lot of propaganda coming out of the corporate media, because we need to think back at the time where they said there was a nuclear test underground, but Japan never detected any type of radiation. And again, there was no other evidence except an earthquake, which could have been from anything. Now, Trump has ordered the interagencies to review the nuclear deal with Iran, and he came to the conclusion that Iran is following and complying with this deal. Now, I know during his campaign he said this was a complete disaster, but we need to step back and take a look at what just happened here. Obama plus Russia and other nations were involved in this P5+1 deal. Iran never had nuclear weapons. Iran was agreeing to this deal to get rid of the sanctions. The U.S., the central bankers, wanted this deal because they wanted Iran to sell their oil on the dollar. And it would keep Iran from having a nuclear weapon, because their plan eventually was to go into Syria, then go into Iran. Now, as Trump speaks to Putin on the Russian side, it's explained to him why this deal is going to be good. Now, think about this for a second. If Iran is complying with the deal and they remove the sanctions, Iran is no longer a nuclear threat anymore. The threat disappears. Yes, they can say they're still a source of terrorism, but we know where all the terrorism is really coming from. Saudi Arabia, Qatar, the United States, Israel, and many other nations. So basically what Trump has done at this point, he's removing the threat from Iran. Check that off, where now the neocons, the central bankers, those who want to get into Iran, why? They're complying with everything. They have no nuclear weapons. They didn't do anything wrong. We can remove the sanctions. There's no reason to have sanctions. And again, this falls into what he's trying to do here. Now, Russia supports Iran's ascension into the Shanghai Cooperation Organization. So it looks like Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, Tajikistan, Uzbekistan, they're all Russia, China, of course, they're joining the Shanghai Cooperation, and now Iran is joining. So things are rapidly changing here. And remember, Iran is not using the dollar to pay for the oil anymore. Trump doesn't care, because he knows this system is done. We're not going to use that dollar anymore. It's obsolete when the system comes down. Something new is going to be born, and it removes the threat. So we can see that things are rapidly changing. Russia is ready to cooperate with all Libyan political forces in Libya to calm the situation down. So think about this for a second. We have Russia calming the situation down in Libya. We have Russia, the U.S., Iran, Syria. They want to get together and talk about the Syrian peace deal. Mattis is speaking with Russia to calm the situation down in Yemen. And we have the North Korea situation. And this is where things get a little strange, because the deep state, they're going to become very, very desperate at this point. And as they become more and more desperate, what is going to happen? They're going to try some type of false flag event where they're going to do something to try to get this war started, which means they're going to do something most likely with North Korea. How Trump reacts to this will let us know exactly where he stands. So the deep state most likely is going to push for a cyber threat, is going to push for some type of missile launch or something like that to try to get us into war, because they understand this is their last thing they can do. Now, the corporate media, they are playing along with this. They're doing the exact same thing that they did to start the Iraq war, to get us into Libya, and they're doing it with Syria and North Korea. They're continually trying. They never give up. They keep trying and trying. And this is what should make everyone worried right now, because we don't know what they're up to. And whatever they're going to do, it's going to have to be big and spectacular. They just can't say, well, we shot down one of their missiles, now we need to go and invade. It's not enough. So they need to do something spectacular to get the people on their side. And this is what we're watching. And as we move throughout this year into the summer, this is where we are headed. And we can see that time is running out. The system is breaking down. And the deep state, well, they don't have that much time left before they're completely exposed. So expect something very big to happen. Listen, everyone, thanks a lot for listening. Be well, be safe, and especially be prepared. Thanks a lot.